Okay, so there one morning I was going to the restroom about 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock in the morning, yeah, and the house wasn't real lit up or anything like that, and I was just walking across the floor toward the little half bath, and all of a sudden I slipped, and I mean immediately I could smell what it was. It was doggy diarrhea. And one of my dogs had apparently been sick. I used the restroom right there, and somewhere where she never does. And the color of it was apparently the same color as our hardwood floors. I don't know, because Adam cleaned it all up shortly after that. But I'm walking, and I, turn the corner, and just the slip and fall that I had probably would have been comical to some people, because I think what happened, I was facing the one direction, it was east, and the slip made one leg go under the left leg, the right leg probably go under the left leg. It turned me around like I did some kind of dance. It was a real crazy dance, and probably flipped in the air and wound up with my head facing north toward a door. And I screamed out, and Adam opened the door, and then one of our dogs, the older one, come out like it was going to bite me. I guess it was so confused, and Adam chased it away, and Adam was not awake yet. He was all confused. He's older than I. And I was laying on the floor, and I was in so much pain, excruciating pain. And I could not move, and I was begging Adam, let me have the cell phone. And he was trying to clean up the poo. And he was just out, and finally I guess he came to, he said, well, just calm down, just wait, we'll see. And he was not awake. Finally, he handed me not his cell phone, but he handed me the landline, and I called the, ambulance. It wasn't too long, and I called the, 911 for an ambulance, and they came out, and I know there was one older man and one younger, and I think other people there. Adam said there was a whole house full, seemed like, and we, I could hear them talking, like the main guy, the one that was the older one. I think he was telling them to put in the line, and one did, and told him what to give me, and I never heard this, I could hear Adam like in the background, and I mean, it like almost immediately, that stuff hit, and I was like, who would ever do this to themselves? Who would ever take this? Who would ever want to? It was so horrible, the experience. All of a sudden, everything, all reality just left. And all I saw was this white background. It was white. Everything was white. And it started making like triangles, rectangles, maybe squares, this kind of thing. Everything was white, but those were outlined in gold. And they were just past me, flying past me. And I was thinking that's what was happening. In reality, I was getting closer and closer to them. Not in reality. There was nothing real about all that. And I was just like, this is just crazy. This is insanity. Who would want this? And I kept saying to myself, I don't want to give in. I don't want to give in to this. But there was nothing I could do, and I told myself I can't. There's nothing I can do. There's no reality anymore. And I was thinking, this must be the end of the world. The end of life, not the world, end of my life. And what happens at the end of the life, situation. And I was like, I don't want to give in to this, And but I knew I had no choice, because that's what it was. And these things started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, these little outlines, that in gold on white. And then I looked over to my left, and I saw this beautiful, beautiful autumn garden. It's a beautiful autumn garden, and the light, bright. I don't believe in that stuff. I've heard people talk about don't go toward the light or do go toward the light or whatever. You know, it just depends on who's telling what story. And I always thought that was a bunch of bull. Well, I don't think it was such a bunch of bull, but I did see a light in that sense. There was a really bright light coming out of a hole where I would walk through that. I was to walk through that the autumn garden or something. It's beautiful. And leaves and everything, and also beautiful colors. And I was standing there, I started talking, and I said, it's red or some color. I said out loud, and they said, and I said, no, it's white. It's a white light. They said, go toward the light. Somebody said, go toward the light. I said, I don't want to go toward that light. That means death. You know, and that's how my brain, I was saying this out loud. Well, it wasn't. Adam was told later on by the EMTs all that I was saying, and he never did tell me all that they told him, but he said, that's not what you were saying, and you weren't saying anything about that. I distinctly remember, because it's a crazy person who would do this to themselves. It's crazy. So I was brought to the hospital, one of the hospitals. There was a lot of hospitals around here. And I was brought to one especially because of the condition that I was in. And when I was on the floor, I heard the main EMT, the older, I say main, I think he was, and he was the older one, I think he was. And he said, he had called my leg position from all that twisting and everything. He used the word, I'm like, why would he use such a odd word, while I was on the floor hearing it, and it was deformed. He used the word deformed. And I remember thinking, that was such an odd choice of wording, They got me in the hospital, and man, I was in an unbelievable amount of pain. And the people who were taking care of me, like having to take off my clothes and put me in a bed, from the gurney to the bed. Because after that part right there where I was on the floor, by the way, I should stop there, start back there. It did, I was on that medication. I was saying, who would do this to himself? This is crazy. I never ever had any kind of experience like that, like hallucinations like that, nothing like that before in my life. And I do recall feeling like the difference of going from being in the house to outside and seeing above me, maybe there was a difference in color, you see, because they were carrying me out the door on a gurney at that point. I didn't know it because everything else was still disappeared. Okay, but I could feel that heat. I could feel something. This is Texas. I could feel the warmth of the heat from outside. And they put me in, I didn't know where they were putting me in. But I didn't even know they were putting me in anything. But all of a sudden, things started to clear up. And it was a young man, and I was saying, can you help me? Can you stay here with me? And I grabbed his shirt so hard, he moved away from me and went around me and stayed far away from me as he could in the ambulance. Because I just grabbed his shirt and said, help me, what's going on? I don't understand. And then I held on to something, which was basically where another one, if there would have been another one, would have strapped himself in. And I was pulling on it, and I said, why won't it stop? I'm pulling it, it won't stop. And then of course things visually were coming back, but not much understanding of anything. And it was terrifying. It was a terrifying experience. And then they said, okay, we're here. And where they brought me to was a hospital, like I said, that deals with this kind of situation. And I told them, I remember telling them where my insurance is and where I wanted to go. And they said, no, we can't do that because by law they had to take me to a certain hospital that deals with that particular situation. They're not allowed to take you to just a, the one I had mentioned, I didn't know it was just general. Okay, just general things. And so they took me to a, someone that specialized in this. And you would think that it would make it better, but that first, the next day they did surgery. But that one day, it was horrible. I was in so much pain. And the people who were helping to move me, to change my diaper, they put me on diapers. Well, obviously, I couldn't, of course they would, obviously, but of course they would because I was unable to move by myself. I was unable to move left to right. They had to help me, and some of them were just so rough. They're pushing me to my left side, pushing me to my right side. And I got mad, really angry, and I wound up talking to some head there, and that woman, I said, she is not to be allowed in my room around me ever again. I said, no, don't push me. No, don't hurt me like that. No, and she just did it anyway. And that was bad. I'd never felt pain like that before, never. Not in any kind of situation anywhere near it, or really, I felt pain before when I have like pancreatitis. There's a different type of pain. And this one was just unbelievable because as it turned out, I had broken my femur on my left side. And that's apparently one of the biggest, one of two. The other one, the right side being two. The femur is the biggest bone in the body. I had fractured it. And that fracture is causing unbelievable pain. I am serious. And I am still, at 42 days later, I am still in pain. Nothing like that day, but still in pain. So